The clownfish laid eggs on this rock. Of course, setting up a saltwater, the clownfish were the first fish that we got. And they exhibit breeding behavior off and on for a long time, but this is the first time we've seen the eggs. So I have an empty tank that I was going to take down, but I think that just before these babies are ready, we're going to move the rock into the empty tank. I've been working on it, making sure that the salt level's the same in both tanks and the temperature is the same in both tanks. And I've been taking water from this tank and putting it in the other tank. This one has a UV sterilizer, a protein skimmer, well, two things that the other tank doesn't have on it. So I'm using this water for water change water. I don't know, really. I'm not doing it the way other people do it. They do it in a sterile tank with, plastic sterile seaweed. So for me to try to do it in a set up tank, that's not how it's taught. Food's also going to be an issue. Trying to feed baby clownfish. I don't have a bunch of green algae jars laying around with lights on them growing algae for baby fish. But I do have frozen rotifers, which are really super small. And we started hatching eggs a couple days ago when I noticed. They can't eat these brine shrimp until they're 4 or 5 days old. From a starter from the fish store. And I started another littler one that I'm raising the salt level to put in the rearing tank. So this one, I'm raising the salt. It's 20, it needs to be 25 to add to the tank. I was able to get a live Fido to feed the copepods. And you have to tent the rearing tank for the baby fish a little bit with the algae. So I got everything I need. Wait and see. So this was the extra tank I was going to take down to 10 gallon. Put a divider in it so that I can turn the pump on early. So the pump has to go off. Adding an air stone where I'm putting the rock. Everything's set up and ready to go. And I have a vacation coming up, so I can turn the filter back on. 10, 14 days maybe? I don't know. We'll see. The pink part in the middle, I see some eggs. You can see them moving a little bit. We moved the rock today because we think they're at the stage where they'll hatch tonight. If they don't, it'll be the next night. It's close. There you can see the eggs moving. I have the tank far away from the rock. I mean the lights far away from the rock. So even something like light can scare the fish and kill them. Like they can die of fright. The pump's off. I have tinted the tank. I don't think I want it more than that. Not super noticeable, but it is noticeable. So yeah, we did good. I have raised baby seahorses. That was hard. That was real hard with the basic equipment that I had. But I did raise a couple to maturity out of, hundreds of babies. So I'm sure this will go a lot better clownfish are pretty hardy, sturdy fish, so this should be much easier. The babies are 3 days old, and I think I got a couple of them on film. I have the filter side separate from the rest of the tank, but the fish are so small you can't even hardly see them, and they're translucent. They can get through this thing that I put here, but I'm not turning the filter on right now, so it doesn't matter that much. I was hoping I could turn the filter on before I go on vacation, but it's not looking like that'll be the case. There's a little bit of room where I can add water, but for the kids who are taking care of my tank, I'm gonna have to take that water level down a little bit so the kids can add fresh water. And yes, I'm going on vacation. I have a plant sitter, a fish sitter, chicken sitter. They're my kids. They live here. They live downstairs. So, and we're paying them well. What's floating there is their food. It's pods, copepods. I showed you a picture of the bottle at the beginning. That's my setup. I have water with a heater, water without a heater. So I have to stock all this before I leave. And do notes. I haven't done any notes on this because I don't know what I'm doing yet. We're on day 3. I've never done clownfish. Every day is different. Every day they get a little bigger. So right now they're on the pods. Later this week I'm hoping to get them on live brine shrimp. And past that it'll be frozen rotifers, crushed food. That's when the tank's going to start spoiling. Because right now everything that's in here is alive and it's not spoiling the tank. Later, when you start putting frozen foods in here and dry foods, if it's not all eaten, well, then the fish, they eat, they poop, they, foul the tank. I just put Phytofeast in here. There's a lot of baby brine in there. So I'm going to siphon the brine out. Put them in a different jar after they eat. The baby clownfish aren't eating this yet, so I'm going to use it for the rest of my tanks. Everybody likes brine, including the corals. So once the brine shrimp hatches, the eggs supposedly sink to the bottom. There's still eggs floating, so when I'm siphoning, I just want the middle. The water in this jar is high in ammonia, so you don't want to put that water in your tanks. So I have a coffee filter. This kind of coffee filter, reusable one. So they're not putting ammonia in the tanks. I use water change water a lot for doing this, so I'm not wasting water all the time. This jar had tulips in it. I buy tulips that way sometimes this time of year. And the jars are great because this fits. I decided to put some in here. There's other things in here. Feeding the food. That was more than I really wanted to put in there, but I don't think it matters that much. I think the baby clownfish are about the same size as those shrimp. But there might be smaller ones in there.
You're done pretending to be a missionary. Back to the slums with the shooting victims.
I've been having problems with this tank. I've just about taken everything apart and cleaned it. Yeah, so anyway, I'm going to do one more cleaning on this tank. I say one, it could be more, but I think I just about got it okay. And I'm going to have to shut the curtains because where the sun is shining now, it's shining directly into the tank. Every time I go on vacation, I come back to Sino. I have a UV sterilizer. I slowed the water down by adding a sponge to the top of it. Hopefully that'll help. And shutting the curtains. The plants are just going to have to deal with it. It's cloudy today, so I can't adjust it. But they're just going to have to deal with less light, very little light until I get home. The whoops led to a water change. So the pods that the culture that I got from the fish doctor, the salt was 20 and it was room temperature. So the bowl is to warm it up and bring the salt level up before I dump the food in the tank. I don't want to shock the food and kill the food in the transfer. So there's always a bucket floating up here of the pods acclimating. I think I read that you need to feed the tank twice a day with a heavy amount of pods. I don't know that there's a heavy pod load in there. I've been doing 4. And I stopped diluting the pods in here so that I'm still getting a good amount going inside. So the temperature is different, the salt is different. I'm also bringing the salt up in my culture so that it's less of an issue now than it was when I started. So now it's just temperature. I'm not going to heat the pods. I do have an air tube going in there. I had to Google this because this isn't something I do every day. Actually, I've never done pods this way. So there's just a tiny bit of air going in there. Just a bubble, bubble, bubble. No air stone. Logically, you would think you would need an air stone. Scientifically, you do not need an air stone. It's too much. So we're not going to just watch this. It's like watching paint dry. See you in the next one.